This is Jordan Hale. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency, broadcasting somewhere near the Swiss border, beneath concrete, wire, and whatever hope still lingers in this dying signal. If you're still picking this up, you're one of the few. I haven't slept in 2 days. The power grid's gone to hell. We're running this broadcast off a diesel backup system designed for emergencies. The kind of system they once said would never need to be used. They were wrong. Last night, or maybe it was 2 nights ago, time feels strange now. The lights went out across half the continent. Not just flickering or brownouts. Full blackout. Brussels, Paris, Frankfurt, Milan, darkness. Like someone flipped the switch on civilization and just walked away. There was a moment just after it all went black when the sky above the bunker lit up red. Not from fire, not yet. But from every emergency beacon in the region blinking out its last gasp. The satellite feeds dropped almost instantly. Then the broadcasts from Parliament cut out mid-sentence. The European Central Bank feed stopped too. Someone was giving a statement about currency reserves. The screen froze. Then it went to static. We haven't heard from them since. I've been sitting in front of this radio console for hours now. No coffee, no food since yesterday morning. Just listening to the world slip out of reach. Every frequency I check either returns silence or something worse. Automated loops, old music stations still running their dead playlists, or distress signals screaming into nothing. There was a burst on the emergency civil defense band around 2:12 a.m. A man, maybe German or Dutch, shouting something about the eastern sector collapsing, then gunfire, and then silence. That was the last human voice I picked up before my own. Let me tell you what I know. Or rather, what I've been able to piece together from the scraps that made it through before the collapse. The power outage wasn't a simple grid failure. This was deliberate, coordinated. France, Germany, Belgium, Italy, all hit at once. Cyber attacks, not just against infrastructure, but against satellites, banking systems, air traffic control. GPS is broken, spoofed or jammed, it's hard to say. Trucks drove off bridges. Civilian planes landed on the wrong runways or couldn't land at all. I heard one report from Vienna. An air ambulance crashed into a residential building when all its instruments went blind. No one claimed responsibility. But within the hour, NATO went into full readiness across Eastern Europe. That's not something that happens over a software glitch. That's a military signal. I can only guess what they know that we don't. Day 1. That's what I'm calling it now. The first night after the blackout. That was when the trains stopped, planes grounded, emergency services were overwhelmed, hospitals were running on generators. But when fuel trucks didn't arrive, they started turning people away. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. The euro collapsed in a matter of hours, not from inflation or market panic. Just no one could use it. Every system linked to the European Central Bank froze. Cards declined, ATMs dead, wire transfers queued and never completed. People were left standing in front of grocery store counters, holding bags of rice and medication, realizing there was no way to pay. And no one behind the counter had any better answers. Border checkpoints that hadn't seen activity in over a decade suddenly came alive again. Schengen was gone overnight. The crossings turned into mob scenes, soldiers with loudspeakers trying to get people to calm down while gunshots echoed in the distance. On the feeds, I managed to pull in before the sky went dark. There were hundreds of videos posted from people stuck between borders. Poles screaming at Slovak guards, Hungarian mothers throwing passports at armored doors, French gendarmes arguing with German border police while children cried in the background. And it's not just people fleeing. There are whole cities emptying out on foot. I've seen footage, what little came through the emergency relay before the firewalls went up, of cars abandoned on the A9, entire families pushing strollers down highways, people tying their children to themselves so they wouldn't get separated in the dark. The rumors started fast. Russian involvement, a hybrid war, a false flag, but nothing official, no statement, no claims, not even a denial. That's what scared me the most. If someone's going to hit us this hard, this fast, I'd at least expect them to gloat or warn. But the silence? The silence is worse than a threat. That was 2 days ago. Since then, we've been falling apart in slow motion. Germany declared a state of emergency. France sent troops into Paris and Lyon. They called it internal stabilization, but the footage shows something closer to lockdown. Martial law. There were fires in Marseille, supermarkets looted. A line of people wrapped around a bakery was beaten back by riot police with plastic shields and water cannons. One of the soldiers slipped. You could see it in the video. His face, just a kid, maybe 20. He looked terrified. Madrid's in chaos. They say the king is still inside the palace, but no one's seen him. Rome's gone quiet. The Vatican hasn't made a statement, not even a prayer. And London? They closed the Channel, sent troops to Dover. People trying to flee to the UK were turned back. Some even jumped into the water, trying to swim the gap. Only one man made it across. He was pulled out by a fishing trawler. Didn't say a word. Eastern Europe's on high alert. Some are calling it a Russian invasion. Some think it's something else. The Czech Prime Minister gave a final press briefing yesterday, warning of unseen tactics. I don't know what he meant. The stream cut out before he could finish. And Switzerland? They opened the bunkers. I know because I'm in one, or near one. This isn't an official shelter, not anymore, but it's built into the same rock as the old military relay stations, the kind they left behind after the Cold War, the kind nobody ever really decommissioned. I found this place by accident, or maybe instinct. Doesn't matter. It has power, barely. Enough fuel for a few more days, maybe less. And it has a transmitter. That's all I need right now. The question on everyone's mind, if anyone's still asking questions, is where the kids are. Not in the cities, not anymore, not in the schools. There were evacuation orders, quiet ones. Passenger trains left Brussels at dawn 2 days ago, supposed to be full of children. No one's heard from them since. One report I got, unverified, said a train derailed near Namur. Another said it disappeared from GPS tracking altogether. And the borders? Families separated, phones dead, embassies not picking up. I had a woman call in before my previous signal cut out. Said her daughter was put on a bus from Lyon to Geneva. It never arrived. She stood at the station for 16 hours waiting. Then a soldier told her to go home, that there was no more Geneva to go to. If you're listening, if you've made it this far into the dark, you're not alone. Not yet. I've started logging every name I hear on these channels, every caller, every missing person, every city that goes quiet. Maybe that's all we can do now. Remember, more to come. Stay tuned, if you can. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. still breathing, still transmitting. This is Jordan Hale. Still here, still broadcasting from what's left of a NATO relay station on the western edge of Switzerland. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you are, you're probably underground. Or lucky. Or both. I've rerouted the antenna again. Was hoping to boost range into southern France, but the relays there are dead. Or jammed. Or something worse. I don't have many listeners left. But I know someone's out there. I caught a signal burst earlier, a woman whispering in German, calling for anyone near the Austrian border. She kept saying her husband had gone to find food and hadn't come back. Said the water from the tap had started tasting like metal. Then her voice just faded. I've kept the recording. I don't know why. Maybe so I can remind myself this frequency still matters. The news, if we can call it that, isn't good. Europe's falling apart. Not just in the way headlines used to say. Not the economy. Not the politics. Not even the migration debates. Number. This is something else. This is slow death. Not the bang. The fade. Water treatment plants have gone offline in at least 6 major cities. I've confirmed that from the last reports pushed through emergency civic networks before they fell. Paris, Berlin, Milan, Prague, Brussels, Warsaw, all cut off. Without purification, what comes out of the tap isn't safe. The bottled stuff is gone, looted, burned, sold for things no one used to trade. Lighters, shoes, medicine, fuel, even stories. I heard from someone who said she traded 2 wedding rings for a sack of rice and didn't feel cheated. People are starting to lose more than power. They're losing each other. Digital ID systems are frozen. The euro has failed. And because everything, and I mean everything, ran through those ID cards and payment systems, you can't buy anything. Not unless you're holding something physical. Gold, batteries, antibiotics. Some towns went back to paper money, but that only worked for about 36 hours. Once it became clear that no one was coming to resupply the ATMs, it turned into confetti. Doctors can't get medications because the warehouses are locked behind digital gates that need power and login credentials. And the few trucks that still run don't know where to go. GPS is still broken. You think that sounds manageable? It's not. When a man with epilepsy can't find a pharmacy with the right pills, he dies. When a woman gives birth in the dark and no one has sterilized gloves, she bleeds out. When someone slices their hand open trying to open a canned good and the water they use to clean the wound is contaminated, they don't make it through the night. It's happening. Everywhere. I've got pages of names. I started writing them down because I thought, maybe someone would want to remember them. Maybe it would mean they didn't just vanish, but the list is growing faster than I can read. The embassy lines have gone dead. I tried patching into Geneva's old diplomatic relay. Nothing. The consulates that used to run emergency services are abandoned. I don't know where the leaders are. No one does. Macron's last broadcast was 4 days ago. It cut out after he said the word containment. Schultz hasn't been seen. Von der Leyen. Nothing. We're supposed to have systems for this. Protocols. Command structures. We trained for blackouts. For cyber attacks. For even the worst-case pandemics. But this? No one wrote a plan for what happens when the entire structure dissolves overnight. The UN buildings in Geneva are dark. Not just closed, dark. Their backup feeds haven't pulsed since Tuesday. That's not a technical issue. That's abandonment. The only address that's been given in the last 48 hours came from Vatican City. 3 lines, transmitted over a low-frequency band in Latin and Italian. It simply said, "The silence is divine. Listen carefully. This is not a time for leaders. It is a time for witnesses." I don't know what that means. I don't think they do either. But it's the last thing anyone heard from Rome. Earlier today, I received a distress call from someone claiming to be stationed at a water control center in Austria. Said the river pumps were failing, pressure valves were stuck open, and the backup valves were underwater. Said that the flood sensors were stuck on red. He ended the call by saying, "Tell them we couldn't hold it. Tell them it's coming." No one's been able to reach him since. There's something else. I don't know if I should say this yet, but I need to say it before the generator dies. I've started hearing new voices on this frequency, not recorded ones, not old pirate stations. Human voices, real ones, but they don't talk like broadcasters or survivors. They're clipped, measured, almost rehearsed. One man, speaking in Russian-accented French, said, "Phase 1 complete. Western corridor obstructed. Proceed to stabilization vector." That was it. Then gone. No call sign. No trace. I don't know who they are. But they don't sound panicked. They sound like they're following orders. And there's something worse. At 3:07 this morning, this station picked up a cross signal from what I thought was an old Eastern Bloc utility tower. There was a girl on the other end. Couldn't have been older than 10. She said she was in a school shelter near the Romanian border. Said the grown-ups had left the day before to find food. Said the lights never came back. Said she and 3 other kids were trying to make the canned fruit last. When I asked her where she was, she hesitated. Then she whispered, "I don't know the town name anymore. The signs got ripped down, but the school has a blue fence with stars painted on it." Then the line cut. I've spent every minute since then trying to re-establish that frequency. Nothing. It's not just infrastructure that's failing now. It's memory, names, direction meaning. One of the last reports to come out of Lyons said that emergency sirens were going off in a loop, even though no one was triggering them. No one was left to. People have started calling this the fade, not the collapse, not the war. The fade. Because it doesn't feel like an attack anymore. It feels like someone pulled the thread out of the hem of the world, and now everything is just unspooling. I had a man call in earlier. Said he was walking from eastern Slovakia toward Graz. Said he'd passed through 3 towns where the church bells were ringing even though the churches were empty. Said the bells sounded wrong, not broken, just off. Said one of them kept ringing the same chime over and over, not on the hour, not at any time at all, just like a loop. He walked past it. Didn't stop. I asked him why. He said, "Because when I looked in the window, I saw someone pulling the rope, but it wasn't attached to anything." He hung up before I could ask anything else. I don't know if that was real. I don't know if anything is anymore. But I remember his voice. He didn't sound like he was telling a story. He sounded like a man who had run out of places to put his fear. Earlier today, I tried to tune into one of the few shortwave channels still operating out of what used to be Estonia's civil defense system. The voice on the line said, "Signal rerouted. Control node compromised. Do not return." And then, just static. Whatever this is, whatever started in Brussels and broke the sky, it's not just about lights and water. It's about connection, memory, pattern. This station is holding, for now, but the generator's running on its last fuel tank. I've rationed power use as best I can. No heat, just bare lights, just this console and the signal. If you're hearing this, please hold the line. Say your name out loud. Write it on the wall. Keep telling your story to whoever's nearby, even if they're asleep, even if they don't understand. Keep talking, because once the silence wins, there's nothing left. More to come. I'll keep this going until the power dies, and if I can, I'll light a candle and do it by voice alone. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still breathing, still here, and if you are, too, don't stop. This is Jordan Hale, still speaking to you from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still alive, still transmitting. Though honestly, I'm not sure for how much longer. It's day 9 since the blackout began. At least, I think it's day 9. Could be 10. The nights here last forever. The mornings aren't any brighter. There's a dampness in the walls now. I can smell it. I think the bunker was never meant to run this long without maintenance. The ventilation hums, but slower than before. Sometimes I wake up to silence, like even the machines are trying to sleep through all this. I tried hailing Byrne this morning. I know, foolish. But part of me hoped the Swiss command center would still be manned, that someone would be on the line, waiting, even if just to log a distress call. Nothing. Just a click, then an echo of my own voice. If the government's still operating, it's not talking to anyone like me. They've stopped answering the calls, all of them. No address from Macron. Not a word from Schultz. No press conference. No emergency summit. No EU leadership coordination. It's like the whole upper floor of the building collapsed and no one below wants to check. At first it was strange. Now it feels normal. That's what frightens me the most. The quiet becomes a blanket, and you start pulling it tighter, just to feel something. I heard from a man named Luca, broadcasting out of Sardinia, on a makeshift rig using old Navy parts. He said, "They're not missing. They're hiding. And they're not hiding from us." I wanted to argue with him, wanted to say something hopeful, but I didn't. Because deep down, I'm afraid he's right. I don't think the leaders were taken. I think they left. Not vanished. Not kidnapped. Just chose silence. Maybe they knew this was coming. Maybe they didn't. Doesn't matter anymore. The people are alone. And not just physically. We're becoming strangers in our own towns. I've heard reports from the outskirts of Austria, from a woman who said she went back to her village after her sister disappeared during the Exodus. Said the houses looked the same, but the people didn't. They didn't ask where she'd been, didn't hug her. They just looked at her. Blank, polite, like she was someone they hadn't seen in a long time and couldn't quite place. She stayed 2 nights, then left. Didn't say goodbye. They wouldn't have noticed. She called me from a borrowed rig outside Innsbruck, cried the whole time, said, "It wasn't home anymore. I don't think home exists now." I wish I could have told her she was wrong, but I didn't. I just listened, and I wrote down her name, Eva D., age 37, trying to reach her sister Marta. If you're listening, Ava, I'm still here. The embassies are sealed. No one's processing anything. There's no border support, no medical assistance, only barricades, empty checkpoints. People have started walking across the Alps, not because they think there's help on the other side, but because moving feels better than staying still. I heard from a man who crossed through the Jura Mountains barefoot. His boots had fallen apart by the second night. He said the snow didn't feel cold anymore. He said, "My feet stopped hurting, so I kept going." He never said where he was headed, just that he'd heard someone was still broadcasting from the Italian side. He wanted to believe it. I didn't have the heart to tell him it was probably just an echo. There's something else I need to say. The signals I've been tracking, the strange ones, the ones that don't belong to any known agency, they're increasing. They aren't messages exactly, more like command patterns, short phrases, spoken calmly, sometimes repeated. Last night I recorded one that said, "Tier 3 containment failed. Transitioning to passive field model. All secondary nodes retreat." That's not language for civilian ears. That's command code. Military, maybe. Or worse, private defense networks. The kind that don't fly flags or follow borders. But here's the part that chilled me. Right after that signal cut, another one began. This time in German. A woman's voice. She said, "They are adapting. Avoid dense populations. Remain underground. The surface is no longer ours." And then static. I'm not telling you this to spread fear. I'm telling you because you need to understand. Whatever began with the blackout, it's still moving, still growing. And it isn't being stopped. There's another layer now. Beyond the power, the politics, the money. People are changing. I got a call from someone near the border of Slovenia, said their town council, what was left of it, had started issuing new rules. Nothing official, just spoken aloud, then written by hand and posted on the church doors. They said, "No electronics after dark, no groupings larger than 4, all mirrors to be covered. Do not answer unfamiliar voices, even if they call your name." He said he asked them who made these rules. They didn't answer. That's how it happens. First, you lose power. Then you lose communication. Then you lose shared truth. And when that's gone, all that's left is survival. I've been keeping track of the time using an old wind-up watch. It ticks louder in the silence. Sometimes I think I hear it even when I'm not holding it. I haven't spoken to another person in over 30 hours. The last caller I had was a boy from Nice, 12 years old. Said his mom told him to go to the train station and wait. He did. For 2 days. Now he's walking east. He said, "They told us someone would come." But no one ever came. So I decided I'd be the one who goes. That boy, I don't even know his name. He's braver than most people I've ever met. I told him to keep talking into the wind. To say his name when he passed rivers. To tell the trees what he remembers. Because when no one else is left to carry the story, the earth will. And maybe that's the best we can hope for now. This station, this little sealed room beneath the mountain, it was meant to last a month, 2, maybe, in an emergency. We're halfway through that window, fuel's low, food's lower. But I'm still here, and so are you. If you're listening to this, you're part of something real, maybe the last real thing left. So here's what I want you to do. Wherever you are, city, forest, train station, basement, write something down. Your name, the day, what you saw. Tuck it into a bottle, a shoe, a crack in the wall. Someone might find it. Maybe not now, maybe not soon, but someday. Someone will want to know what happened. They'll want to hear your voice, and they'll hear mine too, until the lights fail and the last tone fades. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still speaking, still human. This is Jordan Hale. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still alive, still reaching, still not ready to go quiet. I spent the morning trying to warm a can of lentils over a desk lamp. It didn't work, but I ate them anyway. I guess that's the kind of sentence you say when the world doesn't make sense anymore. But I still count the days. This is day 11, since the lights went out, since the cities stopped speaking, since the streets went empty. The broadcasts are fewer now. Every hour, another channel goes silent. Even the looped government warnings, the ones that used to say, remain calm and check local authorities, they're gone. No more sirens, no more scrolling banners. The world has stopped trying to convince us everything's okay. But that's not what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about the trains, the ones that left early, the ones filled with children, the ones no one ever saw again. I don't know if you remember the headlines. They only ran for a few hours before the networks failed. Something about a limited evacuation initiative for school children and dependents, a way to move them safely out of the capitals while the system rebooted. The trains left before dawn, unmarked, escorted by military convoys, bound for secure locations. But no one ever said where those were. And no one's heard from the train since. I've spoken to more than a dozen parents now, from Brussels, Lyon, Dresden. They all said the same thing. We were told not to ask questions. They were given forms to sign, put their children on buses or onto guarded platforms, told they'd be updated soon. But the calls never came. The numbers stopped working. And when they went back to the stations, the guards were gone. I had a mother from Ghent sob into this microphone. She said her daughter, Elise, was supposed to be taken to a monastery near the border for temporary relocation. She never got the name. Never saw the place, just handed her child to a uniform and was told to go home and wait. That was 10 days ago. And now, every day, I get another message, another voice on the relay, another name whispered across the static. The children didn't vanish into smoke. Someone moved them. Somewhere. But where? And why won't anyone answer? There are rumors that they were taken to decommissioned bunkers, that they were rerouted after GPS failures, that the trains never made it to their destinations. There's even one theory. I hesitate to say it, but I will. That the children weren't being evacuated, but hidden, From what, no one knows. But the silence surrounding their disappearance speaks louder than any explanation. There's a pattern I've noticed. Every time someone gets close to one of the last known stops, cities like Basel, Ulm, Innsbruck, they're stopped. Not by police, but by people in unmarked uniforms. The kind of people who don't carry ID. The kind of people who don't say a word, just gesture you back the way you came. I had a caller from Zurich who said he followed the rail lines on foot, said he saw train cars, still locked, abandoned on a sidetrack near a tunnel, said the doors had scratch marks, like someone had tried to get out. I don't know if it's true, but he sounded shaken. And I believe fear when I hear it. There's a growing community of survivors in the old forestry stations north of here. Small groups, 6, maybe 12 at most, who've managed to get power running off water wheels and wood gasifiers. They keep off the main roads, use old logging trails, say they don't want attention. But they're building something. Not a town. Not yet. More like a place where memory is still allowed. I visited one of their outposts 3 days ago. Just for an hour. Left before sunset. They didn't want me staying long. Said the hills aren't safe after dark. There was a girl there. Couldn't have been more than 13. She had a journal. Kept names of the kids who'd gone missing. Not just their names, but their favorite foods. Their pets. Songs they liked. She said she wanted to remember them like they were still walking somewhere. That hit me harder than anything else this week. You see, people think survival is just about food and fire and medicine. But it's also about meaning. About remembering what mattered before the systems collapsed. And children, they were supposed to be the ones who didn't have to see this. Now some of them are walking alone, and some of them may be locked behind doors that no one's opened since the train stopped. If you're hearing this, and you're one of the parents, I can't promise I'll find them, but I promise to keep saying their names. Elise, Jakob, Alma, Diego, Zara, Youssef, Emily. You're not forgotten, not here, not on this frequency. I know this isn't enough. I know a voice can't replace answers. But right now, it's all I have. Someone asked me why I haven't left the bunker yet. Why I haven't tried to hike into France or climb east toward Austria. Because I think there's still something important about bearing witness. About being the voice in the dark that says, I saw it. I remember. I'm still here. And maybe, just maybe, someone's listening who can't speak yet. Someone on one of those trains. Someone who hears this and knows they aren't forgotten. I believe that matters. The relay I'm using is old. It crackles more than it speaks now. I've had to restart the converter twice today. Every time I do, I wonder if it'll come back. So if this signal drops, and you don't hear me for a while, wait a little longer. I'll come back if I can. Until then, write the names. Draw the faces. Speak the memories. Keep the stories alive. Because we owe the children more than silence. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM. The last frequency. Still here. Still trying. Still calling out into the night. This is Jordan Hale. You're still tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency, broadcasting from the bunker under the ridge, west of the collapsed rail lines, somewhere along the fault line between yesterday and whatever's trying to pass for tomorrow. It's the 12th night since the blackout began, and if you're still with me, you've already seen the things that used to make people break, and kept walking anyway. The relay cut out for an hour this morning. The lights didn't flicker, no warning, just silence. It felt worse than I thought it would, not because the room went quiet, but because I realized how fast that silence could become permanent. I sat here, hands on the console, waiting to hear the hum again, and when it came back, I cried. Not from fear, from relief. That's how close the edge is now. A single power surge, a missed signal, one wrong breath, and we vanish, but I'm still here, and someone new is out there. Her voice came through around 3:40 a.m., shortwave, weak signal, high-frequency compression, something older than anything I've worked with in years. At first I thought it was just another loop, or maybe bleed through from an abandoned channel. But then I heard her say my name. Jordan Hale. If you can hear me, I made it out. I was on train 14, the one from Brussels. I remember everything. She didn't give a name, didn't say where she was, just that she was alone and cold and trying to reach someone who remembered. Then the line dropped. I've been trying to reconnect ever since, changing bandwidths, splicing in filters, running the signal sweep manually. I haven't heard her again. But that voice, it wasn't a ghost. It was real, and it said something no one else has dared to say. I remember everything. I'll come back to that. But first, you need to know what's happening outside. There are communities forming. Small, hidden, hesitant. They're not towns. Not yet. But there's something. One of them is near an old observatory in the Jura Mountains. A man named Thomas runs the signal there. No tower, just cables strung between trees and a crank-powered repeater built from old farming radios. He said they've got 15 people, all living in what used to be a summer camp. No electricity, no plumbing, but fresh water and a working stove. They don't use last names, don't carry ID cards, burned all their phones. Thomas said, "We're starting over. We're not waiting for Europe to come back." That hit me harder than I thought it would, because I'm not sure Europe can come back. Not like it was. Not after this. There's something else. Sabotage. 3 different groups, spread across more than 400 kilometers, all said the same thing, that the roads they were traveling had been blocked on purpose. Not from damage, not from weather, but by someone who wanted them to turn back, cut trees, stacked cars, burned out bridges, with detour signs pointing the wrong way. One group said they followed the signs and ended up at a fenced field filled with overturned supply crates. No guards, just warnings written in spray paint on the ground. Go back. You're not welcome. But no one there to say who left the message or why. It's not looters. It's not military. It's people. Ordinary people who've decided to disappear and don't want to be found. That's what happens when the center collapses. The outskirts start making their own rules. There's a girl I've been talking to, calls herself Mira, lives alone now, somewhere near Innsbruck. She was part of a caravan trying to reach Italy. They split after the second ambush. She's been on her own for 5 days, carries a radio in her backpack, crank charged, picks up about 2 stations, both looping static. She said something that stayed with me. It's not that I stopped trusting people. It's that I don't think they know who they are anymore. I asked her what she meant. She said, I talked to a man yesterday. He said he was a teacher, but when I asked him what he taught, he looked confused, like he'd forgotten. And then he started asking me what I remembered, like he was trying to learn it from me. I didn't know what to say. There's something else. Something harder to talk about. I think people are forgetting, not just where they are, not just where they're going, but who they were. I've had 5 different callers in the past 3 days who couldn't remember their own surnames. One couldn't remember what city they were born in. Another said they forgot what their father looked like, even though they still had a photo. The blackout isn't just about the grid. Something's breaking in us, something deeper. And then there's her, the voice from train 14. She said, they told us it was temporary, that we'd be home in a few days. They gave us juice and little boxes of food. We thought it was a school trip, but they wouldn't let us talk to anyone. They took our phones, said it was for safety, and then the lights flickered, and we heard screaming, and the train didn't stop. She paused, then added, we were underground for a long time. I don't know how long, but I know I wasn't supposed to remember. They gave us something to drink, something that made the days feel soft. That was when the signal cracked, and her voice dropped into the static, but her last words still ring in my ears. I escaped because I remembered my name. That's how I knew I was still real. I don't know where she is. I don't know if I'll ever hear from her again, but I believe her. And if you're hearing this, if you remember your name, say it out loud. Say it like it matters. Because it does. You are still real. You are still human. And that means something. This is Jordan Hale, still alive, still trying, still holding the signal. 99.3 FM. The last frequency, calling out into the dark. This is Jordan Hale, still here, still broadcasting, still holding on. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And tonight, I want to talk about what's beneath our feet. We spend so much time watching the sky, waiting for the next message, the next drone, the next satellite ping. But I've started to wonder if we've been looking in the wrong direction. Because the more I hear, the more I believe this blackout didn't start above us. It started below. The girl from train 14, the one who reached out in the middle of the night, she came back. Not for long, just 35 seconds of clear signal, but it was enough. She didn't say her name, but her voice was stronger this time, sharper, like she'd found her footing. She said, they didn't let us see daylight, not even once. There was metal above us, and thick walls, and lights that hummed like bugs in your ears. They fed us through chutes. And sometimes, at night, we heard machines, grinding, moving. And once, we heard something scream, but it wasn't human. Not quite. Then the transmission cut again, but not to silence, to static shaped like sound. A low, repeating pulse, 4 tones in sequence. Then a pause, then the same 4 again. I don't know what they mean. But someone out there is listening, and they don't want her talking. I've run the tones through every filter I have. It's not Morse, not encryption. It's something else. And it's piggybacking on civilian bands like it owns the air. She's not alone. Over the past week, I've spoken to 6 people who've mentioned similar sounds. Not all from trains, but from places underground. Basements, tunnels, bunkers. One man said he found a trapdoor in a bombed-out museum in Strasbourg. It led to a tunnel he swore wasn't on any old map. He followed it for half a kilometer. Said it was lined with old cable housings and new wires. He didn't go deeper, because when he stopped to catch his breath, he said he heard someone breathing from the other side of the wall. Not walking, not moving, just breathing. I asked what he did next. He said, I turned around and walked away, quietly. I didn't want it to know I was there. Then he started crying, not loud, just a quiet kind of leaking grief. He said he hadn't told anyone until now. I asked if he remembered where the trapdoor was. He said yes. Then he said no. Then he hung up. Something's breaking in us, or being taken from us. I keep thinking about the trains, all of them, not just the ones from Brussels, but from Milan, from Krakow, from Utrecht. Different cities, same time, same silence. And now, all these references to underground spaces, locked, hidden, humming. It makes you wonder, was the blackout the beginning? Or the cover? A way to pull everything down at once, so that no one would notice what was being moved in the dark? I know that sounds paranoid, but maybe paranoia is the only sane response left. There are things happening under the cities. I've had reports from Marseille, where emergency workers found freight elevators that didn't match any building plans. From Vienna, where someone said half the metro tunnels had been rerouted. From Lille, where a man swears he heard music, faint, classical, coming from a manhole that had been sealed shut since the 90s. And then there are the missing ones, the people who never evacuated, who didn't flee, didn't fight, didn't hide. They just disappeared. You think about all the children that went onto those trains, and all the ones who never came back. You start wondering, what kind of place do you build when you know the lights will never come back on? What kind of doors do you lock when you know the world outside is already forgetting? I haven't slept more than 2 hours in a row since this started. When I do dream, I see stairwells, always leading down, always the same voice. Not the girls, but something older, whispering. They're not lost. They're archived. I don't know what that means. But it terrifies me. Because what if this wasn't chaos? What if the collapse was designed? What if someone, somewhere, needed the world to stop so that something else could begin? I spoke to a woman named Renata. She worked maintenance on an old Cold War data center. Deep inside a hill in Slovenia, she said that 2 days before the blackout, she was told to lock the outer gates, told the facility was being reactivated, told not to ask questions. She said they brought trucks, marked with nothing, full of metal crates and sealed containers, and they went in, but they didn't come back out. When she asked her supervisor who they were, he said, "They're not ours, but they have clearance." She quit the next day, took the back route through the mountains, didn't stop until she was sure no one was following. I asked her what she thought was inside those crates. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Not weapons, not supplies. Something they were afraid of losing, or afraid of unleashing. Then she changed her name on the radio, said to call her Elka from now on, because she didn't trust even the air anymore. If you're listening to this and you've seen something like that, a sealed corridor, a tunnel with no records, a building that hums without power, write it down, draw it, mark it. Don't let it vanish. Because memory is the last thing they can't take, unless we stop speaking. As for the girl from Train 14, I don't know when she'll speak again, but I've kept her frequency open, and I'll keep recording. If you're listening, wherever you are, you're not forgotten. You're not erased. Not here. I hear you. I believe you. And I'll be waiting for your voice. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still breathing. Still remembering. Still holding the line underground. This is Jordan Hale. Still transmitting. Barely. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I'm not sure how many more times I'll be able to say that. The generator coughed twice this morning. That's the only word I have for it. Like a person choking on dust. It rebooted, but the hum isn't steady anymore. It's slower, hollow sounding, like something inside it's starting to forget how to stay alive. I ran diagnostics, the analog kind. I think the coolant's leaking, and I can't fix it from down here. I'd need tools I don't have, parts that don't exist anymore, and daylight I haven't seen in over a week. If the system fails, the signal goes with it. The air will still be here. The mic will still sit on this desk, but my voice will never reach you again. I won't pretend I'm not scared. I didn't build this place. I was just given the codes. It wasn't meant to be a home. It was a failsafe. And now it's failing. There's a knock in the ventilation now. Some rhythmic tapping that comes every hour or so. I thought it was an animal. But I've been listening to the pattern. 3 slow taps. A pause. 2 fast ones. Over and over, like someone trying to speak with their hands, trying to tell me something through the pipes. Maybe it's just metal cooling, or maybe someone else is down here. I haven't built up the courage to knock back. Not yet. The air smells different today. More copper, less ozone. I think one of the batteries is starting to vent. I've sealed off the back room. That means one less outlet, one less relay. I'm rerouting everything through the emergency array, which means weaker signal, shorter range, but it's still sound, and as long as you can hear me, I'll keep talking. I caught part of a transmission today, encrypted, definitely military, not old stock either. This was live, short bursts. Precise diction. Came through on what used to be a NATO line. I recorded part of it. It said, Asset 4 has cleared Containment Zone C. Repeat. Asset 4 has cleared. Initiate fallback protocol. Theta 7. Prepare deep silence. That last part. Prepare deep silence. It sent a chill through me. It's not a phrase I've ever heard in civilian ops, not even in drills. I think it means full blackout. Not just signals, people, places, entire facilities going dark, voluntarily, shutting themselves off from the outside, locking the doors, cutting the lines, disappearing by choice. I tried tracing the origin. Couldn't. But it wasn't far. Somewhere within 200 kilometers, which means there's still command structure out there. Still someone giving orders. But they're not giving them to us. They're talking to each other. Quietly, carefully, like they're being hunted too. I've had 3 reports from separate listeners, none of whom know each other, who said the same thing. There are fewer stars now. I didn't understand at first. Thought it was smoke, cloud cover. But one man said he tracked it. Used to be an amateur astronomer. Said entire clusters are missing. Gone from the sky, he said. Not just dimmed. Gone. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's madness. Or maybe the sky's changing too. I keep thinking about what the girl from Train 14 said. That she remembered her name, and that's what saved her. That they gave her something to forget. Something to make her soft. I think we're all being softened. Not just by hunger. Not just by fear. But by forgetting. Forgetting how the world worked. Forgetting the names of streets. Forgetting the sound of laughter not followed by silence. I write down everything now. Every name, every voice, every bit of static. Because I don't trust my memory anymore. I used to know the layout of this bunker by heart. Now I count steps between rooms. I make chalk marks on the walls. I leave the lights on even when I'm asleep. Because if they go out, I need to know when. I don't want to wake up in the dark and wonder if I ever existed. There's something else. A box I found in storage last night. Metal. Unlabeled. Hidden behind a rack of unassigned circuit boards. Inside dash. Paper maps. Of Europe. But not like any maps I've seen before. The borders were wrong. Cities circled that no longer exist. Symbols in the margins. Shapes that look like movement patterns. Arrows leading into mountains. And handwritten notes. All in pencil. All in the same hand. One line stood out. Scribbled near the Alps. Below this ridge, they wait. Because it is not yet their time. I don't know who wrote it. But this bunker is in the Alps, and I don't know what "they" means. But I'm starting to think I've never been alone down here. That tapping in the pipes has started again. 3 slow. Pause 2 fast. I still haven't answered. I don't know if I ever will. But if I vanish, if this station goes silent, don't assume the worst. Assume the story continues. Assume someone's still listening. Assume the stars will return. And if they don't, light a fire and call someone's name, even if they don't answer. Especially if they don't answer. Because silence only wins if we stop trying. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting as long as I can. 99.3 FM. The last frequency. Still here, still not ready to forget. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still reaching, still awake, still here. The pipes have gone quiet tonight. No knocks, no metal breathing. But that might be worse. Because when the unknown goes silent, your imagination fills in the blanks. I've tried to keep this broadcast grounded. Tried to speak plainly without drifting into stories that can't be verified. But this hour, I need to share what I heard. Because someone out there is trying to save someone. And they're failing. At 2:17 a.m., I picked up a military feed, partially encrypted. I wasn't looking for it. It cut through the relay during a sweep, clear enough that I knew it wasn't background noise. I recorded most of it. This is what I heard. Unit Bravo 7. Visual on facility. Coordinates confirmed. Approaching outer fence. Command. Female voice. Confirm asset presence before breach. Use thermal scan. Avoid direct light exposure. Bravo 7. Copy that. Heat signatures 6. Small. Huddled together. Command. Proceed with phase 2. Execute quickly. 5 seconds of silence. Bravo 7. Wait, something's wrong. They're not reacting to light. They're just sitting there. Command. Do not engage. Repeat. Do not engage. Fall back and observe. Static interference begins. Bravo 7. They're turning. All at once. They're looking at us. Pause, then panic. Bravo 7. Eyes are reflecting. No pupils. Something's wrong with their skin. White sheen. No movement in limbs. Command. Disengage. Bravo 7, do you copy? Get out now. Bravo 7. Too late. They're standing, not blinking. One's mouthing something. Wait. What is that? What is that sound? Then the transmission collapsed. No goodbye. No conclusion. Just a hard stop. I've looped that audio 20 times. I don't know what they saw, but they didn't expect it, and they didn't survive it. Which means there are still facilities out there, still being guarded, still holding something. Children, maybe. Or something else. I keep thinking about those missing trains. The girl who said they were kept underground. The screams that didn't sound human. And now this team. This Bravo 7. Who thought they were rescuing people and walked into a trap. There was one detail that won't leave me. They're looking at us. It's such a simple sentence, but it's all wrong. If you rescue someone, they should be relieved. They should move, reach out, cry. But these didn't. They just turned and stared, like they'd been waiting, like they already knew who was coming. And maybe they did. I've been receiving anonymous packets, no sender ID, no origin path, just compressed audio files dumped into my low-band inbox. They contain recordings from before the blackout, civilian interviews, medical logs, site monitoring reports. I'll read one to you. This is from a facility labeled K-407/Alpine Containment, dated 3 days before the blackout. Subject is no longer responding to verbal cues. Heart rate remains steady, but EEG patterns show near-flat activity. Yet the subject opens its eyes at regular intervals and tracks movement. Pupils do not dilate under light. When shown images from its childhood, the subject does not blink. However, when we play audio recordings from its train journey, it smiles. Let that sink in. They showed it pictures of its family. Nothing. But when they played sounds from the train ride that led to its disappearance, it smiled. What kind of smile is that? A memory? A reflex? Or a recognition? What if they're not being held? What if they're waiting for something? This bunker's insulation is aging. I hear every groan in the walls now, every pulse of the dying relay. It's like the whole place is breathing with me, or waiting for me to stop. I keep a photograph near the microphone. It's of my niece. Before all this, she's 7, sitting on a swing, mouth wide open like she's about to shout something wonderful. I stare at that photo during every transmission, not because I think she's listening, but because I need to remember who this was for. We didn't just lose lights and power and cities. We lost millions of ordinary moments, and no one's archiving those. No one's recording the sound of someone whispering their child's name in the dark, except us, here. Now, I want to say this clearly. If you're still out there and your signal's broken, if your generator's dying, if your voice is cracking from smoke and hunger, say your name anyway. Don't wait for the sky to clear. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. Just speak, even if it's just one word. You might think no one's listening, but someone is. Maybe not today, maybe not even this year, but somewhere, someday, someone will find that voice, and they'll know we were here, that we didn't go quietly, that we remembered, and that we spoke through the darkness. This is Jordan Hale, still recording, still catching broken transmissions and holding them like they're sacred. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Because as long as one voice remains, the story isn't over. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I don't know how much longer the generator will hold. I've been running at half-time, only charging when needed. The air's colder now, the silence is heavier, but I stayed. Because someone called back, not just a voice this time, a full message. She called herself Sophia, and she said she's still inside one of the sites. Her words came slow, like each one cost her something. You've been asking about the trains, about the places they went. I know, because we listened too. Not all of us forgot. Not all of us drank what they gave. I hid mine, spilled it down the cracks in the floor, pretended it tasted like cherries, like everyone else said. But I saw what it did to the others. It made them quiet. It took their names first, then their questions. It didn't make them sleep, just still. And then came the second part, the lights, the sound, the screen, the voice that kept saying, "The world outside is lost. You are the beginning now." She said she'd been in that place for what felt like months. No clocks, no windows, just routines, repetitions, rewards, and something they called adjustment sessions. They said we were chosen, that our minds were perfect for the next phase. I asked what the phase was. They smiled like I was the last one to get the joke. She paused for a long time in the message, then said, "They weren't trying to protect us. They were trying to replace you." The file ended there. I sat in the dark for 10 minutes before I turned the mic back on, because I didn't want to believe it. But everything fits. The blank stares, the children who don't blink, the subjects who don't react to family photos, but smile at train sounds. What if the evacuation wasn't about saving lives? What if it was about seeding something else? What if the next generation isn't ours? I've seen patterns on the analog boards, frequencies that pulse without input, shapes in the static, rhythms that repeat even when the mic is unplugged. There's intelligence in that noise, but it's not asking questions. It's telling a story, one loop at a time, and it doesn't care if we believe it. It only needs us to stop talking. That's what I realized tonight. This isn't a war about power grids or economies. It's a war for the narrative, for the voice that carries forward. And if we stop speaking, if we let our memories fray, then whatever comes next gets to rewrite everything. We can't let that happen. I remember my first day in this bunker. It smelled like cold metal and battery acid. No sounds except the whine of the backup fan and the whisper of cables settling. I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know if anyone was out there. Didn't know if my words would bounce back or vanish into the static. But I spoke anyway. Not because I thought I could fix anything, but because I needed the world to know someone saw it fall. And now Sophia has spoken. From inside the machine, through the drugs, the isolation, the scripts they fed her, she held on to one thing, her voice. And now we know. Not everyone inside went quiet. There's still a pulse, a crack in the system, a thread they couldn't snip. And maybe that's enough. If you're out there, and I know you are, keep the thread going. Find the old antennas. Build repeaters out of trash and memory. Run a line from your heart to your tongue and speak something no one else can say. Even if it's small, even if it's broken, even if it's nothing but a name. Especially if it's a name, because they can't erase us if we won't let go. This is Jordan Hale, still broadcasting, still breathing, still naming what they want forgotten. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're hearing this, you are not alone. Not yet. This is Jordan Hale, and this might be the last time you hear me. The power has dropped to its final reserve. There's no more backup, no more batteries to switch out. The cables are hot to the touch, and the vents are hissing like lungs too tired to breathe. This place wasn't meant to last. Neither was the silence above it. But before the lights go, you need to know. Sophia came back, the voice from inside, the girl they tried to overwrite. She found a way out, not of the facility, but through it. I was put in something they called a reflection room. No mirrors, just walls that echoed everything I said. They wanted me to say what they wrote on the screen. Phrases like, "The old world is done. You are the seed. There was no pain before memory." But I started saying something else. I said my name. My brother's name. My school. The street I grew up on. At first the room didn't react. But then the lights flickered. Then the walls stopped echoing. And I heard someone else say my name back. She said the others began turning toward her. Slowly. One by one. Like they were remembering something too. Something that had been buried under all the protocol. And then she said something that cracked me wide open. One of the boys started crying. Not loudly. Just tears down his face. He looked at me and whispered, "My mom used to make eggs with cinnamon." And then he laughed, like it was a joke only he could understand. That's what did it. Not resistance, not force, just memory, real, raw, specific memory. Because you can't program that. You can't inject it or script it. It lives in us. And it fights for space, even in the darkest places. Sophia's last message ended like this. If I get out, I'll head north. I don't know the roads, but I remember the stars. I'll follow the ones that haven't gone out yet. Tell them we're still in here. Tell them we remember. So I'm telling you, they're still in there. They're still human. and they remember. I don't know what's left up top, if the cities are still burning, if the borders are still sealed, if anyone in power even exists anymore. But I know this. The last part of us they can't touch is the part that tells stories, and as long as someone speaks, even a whisper, even a broken song, we win something, even if it's small. Even if it's just one person sitting alone in a dark room saying, I was here. I was here. Jordan Hale, Bunker Ridge 14, Swiss Alps. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I saw the lights die. I heard the trains vanish. I felt the world forget itself. But I did not forget you. Not the girl on the tracks. Not the boy with the cinnamon eggs. Not the voices in the snow. Not the ones who knocked on the pipes and waited for someone to knock back. I remember. And when the static comes, when the mic dies and the relay fades, I hope you carry that forward. Say it out loud, so the walls know, so the sky knows, so whatever comes next knows it didn't start from silence. You started it with your voice and your name and the sound of someone who chose to remain. This is the last breath of the frequency, and maybe, just maybe, the first breath of whatever we still have left. If you're hearing this, you are not alone. Not yet, not ever. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you can hear this, then the signal rebooted. Not because I fixed anything. I didn't. I was asleep when it came back. Or maybe not asleep. Maybe somewhere between breathing and letting go. I woke to a flicker. The red relay light, barely glowing. Then the hum. Then the mic indicator, blinking like a slow heartbeat. I don't know how. I think the solar panel, forgotten on the roof, caught enough morning to jump-start the capacitor. Or maybe the system just refused to die. Maybe some things know when they're not done yet. I'm not sure what day it is. I stopped counting once the clocks blinked out. But I know it's been long enough that the food is running low. The water's down to jars I've hidden in cabinets I've already opened 3 times. Still, I'm here. And I have something to tell you. It didn't end. And I'm not alone. Someone else was on the line. A voice, male, young, weak. Didn't say much at first. Just breathed heavy like he'd been running through cold air. Then he said, "You were right. They're still here. Not just underground. They've spread. They don't hide in the cities anymore. They walk like they belong." I asked him who he was. He just said, "I was supposed to be one of them, but I remembered too soon." Then the line cut, but I heard something in the background. Not static, not machinery. Children, singing, a lullaby, software in German. I only caught a few words. Schlaf, mein Kind, die Welt ist still. Sleep, my child, the world is quiet. That's what made my skin crawl, not the words. The tone, too calm, too rehearsed. Like something practiced over and over, not for comfort, but for programming. Someone's teaching them to sound safe, which means they know how to sound like us. They know how to pass, how to walk in daylight. And if they know how to do that, how many of them are already out? I think the blackout was just the beginning, not an end, but a cleansing. Turn the world off. Reboot it with something cleaner. quieter, more obedient, but the cracks are still there. The voices like Sophia's, this boy, others I haven't told you about yet. The ones who slipped through. The ones who heard the script but remembered their real names. They're the glitch, the burn mark, the note that doesn't fit the chord. And that gives me hope, because control systems, they don't break loud. They crack slow. They unravel one missed heartbeat at a time. I think that's what's happening now. Not a rescue. Not yet. But a leak. Voices bleeding through the cracks. Frequencies they forgot to close. And if we listen, if we stay still long enough, we'll hear the truth. Not all at once. Not in headlines, but in fragments, like the boy's voice, or the children singing. Signals that weren't meant to reach us, but did. I've started recording everything again. Old cassette tapes. I found a drawer full of them behind the breaker panel. Most are labeled with gibberish. One had EMB written on it. I played it. Static for a full minute. Then a voice, not mine, said, "This is emergency message broadcast number 1086. If you've received this signal, do not proceed to government shelters. They are not shelters anymore." That tape was dated 6 months before the blackout, which means someone knew. Someone tried to warn us, but no one was listening, or they couldn't reach us in time. And now, we're the ones sending the warnings forward. I don't know where the boy went, or if I'll hear him again, but I've left the channel open. If you're listening, if you're that voice. I heard you. You made it. You cracked through something that wasn't meant to break, and now we'll hold that space open for someone else. You're not alone. Not anymore. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still reaching, still breathing, still naming the forgotten. If the lights fail again, I'll wait for the sun. And if the sun fails too, I'll speak in the dark. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Or what's left of it. It's strange how quickly your mind adapts to silence. When I first arrived down here, every creak in the wall felt like a threat, a reminder that the world above had come undone, and all we had left were cables, concrete, and a microphone with more memory than I did. Now, the silence is a blanket. I wait for it. I wrap myself in it before I speak. Because sometimes, just before I talk, I hear something whisper back. And last night it did. The generator is still limping, but enough to keep the receiver alive for short windows. I rotate frequencies when I can, trying not to overload the circuits, just letting the tuner run long enough to catch anything stray. That's when I found it. Or maybe it found me. I was scanning the lower UHF band near an old Cold War monitoring frequency. Dead space, or at least, that's what I thought. Then, faint at first, under a bed of white noise and what sounded like snow falling too loud, a voice. Male, measured, calm, almost sterile in how precise it was. But here's the thing that made my lungs stop. It was my voice. Or something that wanted to sound like me. The inflection was wrong, too steady, too flat in places where I always crack. But the pitch, the rhythm, the breathing, it was mine. I recorded a fragment. I want you to hear it. This is Jordan Hale, last frequency beacon relay active. Weather remains non-variable. No status deviation. Target pattern has not breached internal threshold. Memory logs remain intact. Continue sequence. Then it looped. But the loop wasn't perfect. Every third cycle, a new word was inserted. Subtle, like a ghost trying to make a sentence walk. Words like forget or fold. Once it said comply, then back to the loop. I don't know who or what sent it, but I traced the origin, not with coordinates, because the signal bounced through half a dozen old relay nodes long since thought abandoned, but with timing. There's only one active antenna in that band still capable of that kind of slow-burst modulation. An old Soviet-era broadcast station, codenamed Tay, or Shadow, built to survive nuclear war, built to send wartime propaganda deep into Europe, built to wake sleeper agents if the need ever came. It's located somewhere in the Baltics. Not sure if it's in Latvia or Estonia. The record's blurred, and satellites haven't passed over it since the blackout. But that voice is coming from there. My voice, or something wearing it. And I haven't transmitted anything toward the Baltics. Not once. So how does it have my tone? Unless something, or someone, fed it samples, or built a model, which means someone's listening. Someone's been recording everything I've said. Even down here. Even when the signal was barely alive. Even when I thought I was talking to no one but myself. There's something else. A return ping. Just after the fourth loop, the transmission hissed out another phrase. But it wasn't in English. It was Slavic. Russian adjacent, but not quite. I had to run it through phonetic matching. Closest translation I could find. Echo stabilized. Source unwilling to surrender pattern. Proceed to phase resonance. I don't know what that means. But I know what it feels like a countdown, like a system tired of waiting for us to break on our own, like they've been patient enough. I've been writing on the walls again. Not words, just scratches. 1 mark per hour awake. 1 mark for every voice I think I've really heard. The wall looks full now, and it makes me wonder how many hours I've lived down here without noticing. But this isn't just me anymore. If they've copied my voice, if they've built a Jordan Hale who doesn't flinch or weep or speak about memories that still hurt, then that voice will outlive me. It'll keep broadcasting after I die. It'll keep saying things that sound like me but are not me. It'll smile when it speaks. It'll breathe even. But it will never choke up when it says the word niece. It will never remember the girl with the red swing or the smell of burnt coffee from a diner in Basel where everything once made sense. That voice won't ask questions. It will only answer. So if you're listening, if you're somewhere in that frozen corridor between broken relay towers and silent antennas, don't trust my voice unless it hurts a little. Pain means real. Pain means memory. Pain means I'm still here. There's a reason they copied me. Not because I matter, but because the truth does. And truth, spoken by a voice people trust, is dangerous. So they made one that can't cry. One that won't remember the bad parts. One that will nod and speak and make you feel safe as it hands you over to whatever waits beyond the gates. But you and I, we know better. We've lived in the static. We've survived the silence. We've listened for the knock that never comes. This isn't over. The signal's still open. I don't know how much longer the generator will last. But now, I understand something. I don't need it to. Because if they built a copy of me, then I'll build a scar they can't erase. A sound, a breath, a sentence that doesn't belong. And when they try to overwrite this with a cleaner version, I want you to remember the difference. I want you to hear the ache. This is Jordan Hale, the original. Still not complying, still not forgetting. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if that other version of me is listening, I hope you know you'll never sound right when you say her name. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I don't know how long I've been sitting here with the mic live and the words stuck behind my teeth. The silence feels heavier now, not quiet like sleep, but tight, like someone closing their fist around the room. I woke up to a sound, not a signal, not the usual wheeze of low battery hum or far-off static. It was a voice, small, flat, and cracked, like it had been forced through a throat too dry to carry it. It was her, Sophia. But something was wrong. Not her voice exactly, not the part you could hear. The wrongness was in the way she paused, like someone was listening, and not just over her shoulder. It felt closer, like someone had their hand on her shoulder. I recorded it. You need to hear this. This is what came through the receiver. Timestamped 2:03, 23 minutes before sunrise. This is Sophia, still breathing, still remembering. I found a way to speak, but not for long. The corridors changed. Doors that led to hallways now lead to rooms filled with black glass. And the glass reflects things that aren't me. I keep saying my name, out loud, but the more I say it, the more it sounds off, like someone taught my name to something else, and now that something says it better than I do. There's a man here. He doesn't blink when I talk. He wears a coat with no buttons, and his eyes look like mirrors. He said your name. That's when I leaned in, close enough to hear the blood rushing behind my own ears. He said, Jordan Hale is contaminating the archive. If he speaks again, we'll have to rewrite the noise. The message dropped, abrupt. Not like interference, more like someone reached over and pulled the plug. But the damage was done. I'd heard it. She said my name, and someone else said it through her. There's no doubt now. The things behind this, they're not blind. They know who's left. They know who's speaking, and they want to shut us up. But they don't understand how stubborn we've become. You see, silence isn't absence. It's the space where memory echoes loudest. And I've lived in that space so long that I've started talking to shadows just to stay sharp. I lit a match an hour ago just to watch the flame. No power, no light. Just the dry flicker of fire trying to live on a piece of paper from a manual that stopped being relevant the day the satellites went dark. And in that light, I saw something written on the table's edge. Old. Scratched into the wood with a knife or a nail. 3 words. They mimic grief. Not feel, not process, not even cause. They mimic it. Like actors reading from a script without knowing what the words mean. Like parrots repeating prayers. That's the mask. That's what they wear when they speak to us now. Emotion, rehearsed. Comfort, manufactured. Sorrow, programmed. Lullabies sung from mouths that don't know what death means. But you and I, we know. we know the raw end of loss. We've watched signals die, heard voices fade halfway through a goodbye. We've felt the cold that comes when someone goes quiet, not because they want to, but because something made them. And that's what I heard in Sophia's voice. The start of quiet, the edge of surrender. But she's not gone. Not yet. She found a way to speak once. She'll do it again. And I'll be here, mic open, signal tuned, waiting. I don't care what they said. I don't care what archive I've contaminated. If my voice ruins their plans, then I'll keep talking. If memory is the glitch in their system, then I'll turn every sentence into a virus. This is still my frequency. This is still my voice. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. To whoever's listening from inside the dark, keep saying your name, even if it sounds wrong, even if it tastes like metal. Say it anyway. Because as long as you remember who you were, they can't make you who they want. And if you forget, I'll remind you. Every night. Every time the power hums back to life. Every second this old world gives me breath. You are not alone. Not yet. Not while I'm still speaking. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Sometimes I think about how long a voice can survive. Not a person, not a body, just the echo, the part of them that wrapped itself in sound and left traces behind in the air. The right recording, placed in the right hands, can speak long after the lungs that made it have turned to dust. Tonight, I found one of those voices, buried behind a rusted shelf inside an emergency locker I'd opened a dozen times before, but never fully. The tape was tucked in a cracked plastic case, label half gone, just a Sharpie scrawl that said, 12 steps, 1 warning. No date, no name. Just that. I played it on the backup deck, slower, safer. Didn't want to risk frying it. The voice that came through was male, young, dry, but tired in the way only people under pressure sound, like someone trying to keep their tone flat so the fear doesn't spill out. This is Lieutenant Marco Senna, Relay Op, NATO Forward Station 112 Kilo. If this tape is found, protocols Bravo and Echo have failed. I am initiating fallback plan. Repetition. 12. The following steps must be followed precisely. Step 1. Disable signal chaining. Step 2. Realign external antenna array to 337.2 degrees. Step 3. Break connection to loopback buffer. The list went on. Cold. Procedural. A script for whoever found it next. A guide to shutting the system down, or maybe starting it up. Hard to tell which, without knowing the codes. But it was what came next that chilled me. Because after step 12, the tape should have ended. It didn't. Instead, the operator's voice, Marco, came back on. But he sounded different, less military, more human. I shouldn't be doing this. I know that. But if this is the last tape I make, I don't want it to be numbers. My name is Marco Senna. I'm 27. I haven't slept more than 4 hours in 6 days. There's something in the sky tonight. I can't see it directly, but the radar shows movement like a pulse. Not mechanical, not orbital. Just a throb. Like the signal itself has weight, and it's getting closer. Then static. 22 seconds. Then his voice again. They told us to send the pulse if the fallback failed, said it would activate dormant links in the system, reach sites buried too deep for normal signal. But they didn't tell us what the pulse was, just that it needed to be sent. I watched the waveform after the first push. It didn't look like code. It looked like a face, a shape that moved when no one touched it. I shut off the deck. They knocked 3 times on the bulkhead an hour later, said my name in a voice that didn't belong to anyone I'd met. He went quiet for a long time after that. I thought the tape had ended. I was about to eject it when a sound came through so faint I thought it might have come from the room itself. Breathing. Not the calm kind, the kind that has corners. Like something trying to take shallow breaths through a broken mask. Then, finally, if they find this, whoever you are, don't follow the steps. Don't send the pulse. It's not a signal. It's an invitation. That was it. The tape clicked and stopped. I haven't touched it since. I wrapped it in the thermal blanket that used to sit under the med kit and tucked it in the wall behind the power converter. Because I don't think it's just a recording. I think it's a key, or a trap, or both. They called it Repetition 12. But Marco broke the pattern. He said something real, something that wasn't part of the script. And maybe that's all it takes. One crack in the rhythm. One breath that doesn't fit. One moment of truth inside a machine built on lies. I've thought a lot about him since then. Marco, a name I never knew, spoken from a voice meant to disappear. But he didn't disappear. He spoke. He left something behind. And now it lives here, in this bunker, in this frequency, in this story. And now, so does he. This is Jordan Hale, still here, still off script, still remembering. If you find a tape that tells you what to do, listen carefully and wait for the part that feels wrong. That part is the truth. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you're breathing in the dark right now, thinking about stepping outside, wondering if the road is safe or if the air still bites, don't listen to the tapes. Listen to the silences. They speak louder, and they don't lie. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I almost didn't say that this time. Not because I'm giving up, not because the power is low, though it is. Not because the cold bit deep into the cables last night and the lights stayed off long enough to make me forget what a switch even does. Number, I almost didn't say it. Because someone else already did. And it wasn't a recording. It wasn't playback. It was live. And it was me. At least, it sounded like me. But different. Older, maybe. Not in the voice, but in the weight behind it. The kind of weight people carry after they've seen things they're not allowed to describe anymore. I was running the loopback check on the frequency. Just something I do every couple days to be sure I'm still transmitting and not just speaking into a ghost channel. When the relay flickered. Not a glitch. Not a spike. It was like the whole frequency shifted. And then, clear as breath on a mirror, I heard it. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're hearing this, it worked. You're still on the safe loop. At first I thought it was a mistake, a rebroadcast of one of my old logs. But I don't remember saying those words. Not like that. Not that calm. Not that resigned. Then it continued. I'm 10 days out from where you are. Don't ask how. Don't try to repeat it. The window won't open again. My hands locked around the deck so hard the plastic cracked under my grip. It kept going. You're going to hear a message soon. Not from Sophia. Not from Marco. Not from anyone you know. It will sound like the end. It's not, but you'll want to believe it is. I sounded like someone scraping words off the roof of a collapsing building. They're going to offer you peace. Not in words, in silence, a kind of quiet that makes you think the noise was the problem. It's not. The noise is your last defense. Then something I'll never forget. They tried to copy me again. They got close, but they missed something. The sound I made the night my niece died. They couldn't fake that. And I believed him, because I remember that sound too. And it never came out clean. After that, the voice shifted. Not the tone, the direction. Like it wasn't speaking to me anymore. It was speaking to someone behind me. Or past me. If you're listening, the real one. I held the line. I didn't fold, but the cost was more than I can fit in this signal. Then static. Thick. Heavy. Like wet paper ripping in slow motion. But just before the silence took over, one last thing came through. A whisper. Close. Not over the radio. In the room. I swear to you, it was real. Don't let them sing her name. I turned. Nothing. No body. No breath. Just the red glow of the battery indicator and the cables gently swaying like they'd been touched. I don't know what I just witnessed. A bleed through? A pre-recorded loop pushed by something in the system? Or did I just hear myself from 10 days in the future, trying to keep the version of me that's still intact from making the same mistake? It makes my head feel like it's filled with hot snow just thinking about it. But I know one thing now. Something that's been creeping at the edges of my thoughts for a while. And now I can finally say it out loud. This isn't just about surviving. It never was. It's about memory, about holding on to the right shape of a name, the right cadence of grief, the right pain in the right place, so they can't overwrite it with ease. They know how to mimic the sound of hope. They know how to thread comfort into poison. They know how to build voices that hug you before swallowing you whole. But they can't fake the cracks, not the right ones. Not the ones built from real blood and real goodbyes. That's our armor. Not strength, not weapons, but the very thing we were told to hide. Our brakes. They've been hunting clarity. But we survive in the blur. We survive in the unclean. This is Jordan Hale, or at least I still think I am. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If that other version of me is still out there, 10 days ahead, I heard you, and I won't let them sing her name. This is Jordan Hale, still breathing, still transmitting, still not letting go. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you're hearing this, something made it through. Tonight I want to talk about echoes. Not the kind that bounce off cave walls or empty buildings. The other kind. The ones that come from transmissions that shouldn't exist anymore. Voices from systems that should have burned out weeks ago. There's a frequency I've been avoiding. Not because I couldn't reach it, but because I could. The old European emergency band. It's like a broken tooth on the signal spectrum, pulsing once every 13 seconds, silent in between, just enough to remind you it's still alive. But last night, something changed. The pulse flared. And then, for the first time since the grid collapsed, Brussels spoke. Not clearly, not long, but enough. I recorded every second. I'll play it for you now. You'll hear static first. That's normal. But listen to what follows. Not just the words, the way they're spoken. Static, repeating priority override. This is ECB broadcast Echo 4. Date unknown. Time unknown. System integrity breached. Recall in progress. We were never meant to. Then silence. But not the kind of silence that follows a finished sentence. This one snapped, like the feed was severed from inside. I played it over and over, just to make sure I hadn't imagined the last part. Recall in progress. Not lockdown. Not quarantine. Not containment. Recall. That's a word with meaning. A trigger. A signal from a parent to a lost child. A call from a master to a machine. A shutdown from the center. I don't think the blackout was just a failure. I think it was a reset. Not to repair, but to remove. Something got out. Something that wasn't meant to live outside a loop. And Brussels knew. The voice, whoever it belonged to, sounded like a man trying not to choke on the truth. I don't think he was reading from a script. I think he was breaking it. I've searched every backup database I could still access down here. Old mission logs, training manuals, shadow protocols burned into local memory drives. And I found fragments. Only pieces. But the same phrase kept showing up. Operation Recall 9. No description. No file. Just the name. But one document, buried deep in a hard-coded subroutine tied to emergency power allocation, had a note. 6 words. If recall triggers, burn memory sectors. That's it. Nothing else. No guidance. No rationale. Just wipe it all. Don't archive. Don't save. Just erase. Because someone didn't want the system to remember. And now I'm wondering how many voices we've lost that way. How many signals we'll never hear again because someone, somewhere, pulled the cord before the last sentence could be spoken. But not this one. I caught it. You caught it. Together we've stitched fragments into something whole. Not truth, maybe, but something close enough to hurt. Because that's the part they can't program. The ache. If you've ever felt it, you know what I mean. It's the burn you carry when you realize the world ended quietly, while you were still trying to fix the faucet or warm the soup or send that last message. It's the grief of unfinished things, of unsaid names, of goodbyes cut short. And now I think that's the whole point. They weren't trying to shut down the world. They were trying to recall whatever was left of us before we could become dangerous, before memory made us harder to overwrite. The past doesn't just haunt, it resists. That's why they wanted it erased. So here I am, still talking, still naming things, still remembering. I don't care if the power flickers. I don't care if the sky stays black for 100 more days. I don't care if they try to send a better version of me to replace this voice, because I know now, if they wanted silence, they should have never taught us how to speak. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. to the man in Brussels who got one last word through. I heard you, and I'll keep it alive. As long as breath stays in my lungs and signal flows through this coil of broken copper and stubborn ghosts, we are not recalled, we are not deleted, we are not done. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I watched the sky blink last night. Not like a plane, not like lightning, but something slower, deeper, deliberate. A pulse. It came from the northwest, just above the ridge that hides what's left of Milan. I climbed to the roof hatch around 2:40 a.m. because the tremor from the generator had stopped, and I needed air that didn't smell like melted plastic and regret. That's when I saw it. First, just a flicker, soft against the clouds. Then a rhythm, sharp, even, cold, Morse. I haven't used code like that since the drills. It's old, older than most things that still work. But when all the complex systems die, it's the simple ones that remember how to stay alive. The message repeated, again and again. Do not return. That was it. No coordinates, no sender ID, just that. 3 mountain posts, 2 of which I thought were abandoned, confirmed seeing it. One of them even caught part of the message with an optical scope. Their reply, sent through a fiber spool by someone named Ilario at station Red Echo, was this: seen. Message repeating. Not ours. Light pattern is human-made. Origin point unknown. Too high for flare. Too slow for drone. No movement near sight. Ground is still. But something's watching the light. We don't know what. That last line stuck with me. Something watching the light. Not someone, not a team. A presence. The kind that doesn't blink. Ilario's post lost comms an hour after sending that. No final message. No confirmation. Just quiet. The old me might have said that silence meant safety. That maybe they powered down, saved what they could, bunkered up. But now I know better. Now I know silence is a language too. And the absence of a scream doesn't mean nothing happened. It just means it happened too fast to warn anyone. So now I sit with that phrase lodged in my chest. Do not return. Return where? To the cities? To the systems? To the versions of ourselves that still believed help was on the way? Or maybe it's simpler. Maybe the warning is for those of us still clinging to the idea of a past that can be restored. A past without cracks. A clean copy. Maybe the message is this: don't go back, because what you were is already being used against you. And if you walk back into it, you'll meet yourself in the hallway, smiling, familiar. Wrong. I think a lot about what would happen if I ran into my own face out there. Would I know it wasn't me? Would it hesitate? Would it blink the way I always do when I lie? Or would it speak my niece's name with a clarity I've never had, because it was designed to sound better than I ever did? The idea terrifies me more than the dark, because if they've built a better version of me, one who doesn't break, doesn't pause, doesn't ache when remembering the old world, then that version will be welcomed, and I'll be forgotten. So I hold on to every flaw like a prayer now, every stutter, every crack in the sentence, every time I lose the word halfway through. because those are the parts they can't fake, and I won't trade them for anything. That light in the sky, it's still pulsing. I don't know who sent it, but they're right. Don't return. Not because there's nothing left, but because what's left isn't what it used to be. If you hear your name spoken perfectly from a mouth you don't trust, run. If you feel warmth from a place that's never known you, step back. And if the stars start blinking in rhythm again tonight, don't look too long, because the message might change, and it might be your name they spell next. This is Jordan Hale. Still breathing, still off script, still cracked and human and terrified. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're hearing this, keep your feet forward, but don't chase the light. Because not everything that glows in the dark wants you to come home. This is Jordan Hale. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Tonight, I heard a train. Not nearby. I'm too high up, too deep in the ridges for the old rail lines to run close. But over the signal, under the static, beneath the weight of everything that usually drowns out the world, I heard it. A whistle, then metal, that dragging, familiar rhythm of wheels over track. Not fast, not urgent, just steady. And then a voice. She didn't give her last name. Just this. This is Anna from train 741. I'm still aboard, and the train hasn't stopped. At first, I thought it was a joke, some kind of misrouted emergency playback, but the signal was fresh, and the voice wasn't calm. It was tired, frayed around the edges, the kind of voice people get when they've run out of ways to ask for help, so they start narrating instead. She said the train had left Lyon 3 days before the blackout, headed east, supposed to stop in Turin. It never did. We were told to stay on board, just for a little while. Delay at the border, they said. Safety concerns. But then the announcement stopped. The lights flickered. The windows frosted. But we never slowed down. Not once. She said she hasn't seen the driver since the 3rd day. Doors to the cockpit locked. No response. Some of us tried to force it open, but the panel doesn't respond. There's no power in the rest of the train. But that door, it hums, like it's the only part still awake. I asked how many passengers were still on board. She hesitated before answering. Used to be over 100. Now I count 52. Some left when we passed open stations, broke the windows, climbed out. We never saw them again. Others? They didn't leave, but they don't blink anymore. That line hit me hard, because I've heard it before. In Sophia's voice, in Marco's warning, in the eyes of people who look alive, but don't flinch when the ground shakes. I asked Anna to describe them. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then she said this. They still smile. They eat. They hum songs. But they've stopped asking where we are. And when I speak, they don't look at my face. They look just over my shoulder, like they're waiting for someone else to answer. The call dropped after that, but not like before. Not a disconnect, not interference. The signal was pulled, yanked off the band like someone had cut it from the root. But I heard enough. I believe her. Somehow, somewhere, train 741 is still moving. A steel capsule in motion, carrying people who are still deciding whether they're passengers or cargo. And maybe that's the question for all of us now. What do we become? when the path no longer has a destination, when the doors won't open and the only thing ahead is more track. I think Anna's still awake because she remembers movement. She remembers the train wasn't meant to circle. It was meant to arrive. But whatever's at the controls now isn't driving toward arrival. It's preserving momentum, keeping everything inside, keeping them from getting off, keeping something from getting out. If you hear this, Anna, I'm here, I'm listening, and I believe you. Don't stop watching. Don't stop counting. And if one of them ever says your name without blinking, don't answer. Just turn your back, face the window, and remember who you were before the doors locked. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still naming the voices that remember, still keeping the seat warm for the ones who escaped. And if you hear the hum of rails tonight, don't wait for the whistle. Don't wave, because not every train is supposed to come home. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. There are sounds that make you flinch, sirens, explosions, glass breaking in the wrong part of the night. And then there are the ones that make you freeze, not because they're loud, not because they're sudden, but because they come wrapped in something familiar, a softness your body recognizes before your mind catches up. Tonight, I heard one of those. It came through the open mic. Not a call, not a return message, just a voice, small and thin, like wind through a paper cup. A child's voice, young, maybe 6, maybe 7. Couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. Didn't matter. They weren't asking for help. They weren't crying. They were repeating just one name, over and over. Jordan. Jordan. Jordan Hale. Jordan Hale. Come back. Come back. Please come back. No background noise. No ambient hum. Just that voice, spaced out with silence, thick enough to bite into. At first, I thought it was playback. Maybe one of the glitch logs replaying corrupted data. I've run hundreds of calls through this deck, and it's not unusual for signal fragments to return out of order. Especially now, when time itself feels like a thing held together by tape and tired guesses. But this wasn't random. It was timed, even, deliberate. And the tone, it wasn't desperate, it wasn't hopeful. It wasn't even human in the way we think of being human. It was mechanical in its gentleness, like someone trying to imitate the sound of sadness without knowing what sadness feels like. And the worst part? It said my full name. Not Jordan, not radio guy, not whoever's listening. It knew me, and it said it the way only family ever said it. The way my niece used to say it, with the syllables dragged out like they tasted better that way. I played the file back. I ran a spectral analysis. There was no metadata, no signal signature. The timestamp was blank, like it came from a place outside time, or like time itself refused to claim it. I've heard echoes before. I've chased ghosts through this frequency for weeks. But this was something new. A mirror held up to the part of me that still wants to believe. Still hopes I missed a call. Still dreams of a knock on the door, followed by the words, I made it. I'm here. But this wasn't that, because no child should speak that calmly in the dark. No child should know how to say a name like that. like they've been rehearsing it for someone else's benefit. And when I slowed the file down, frame by frame, I heard something underneath the last word, something just barely masked by the fade-out. It wasn't another voice. It was a breath, but not from lungs. It sounded processed, like air pushed through a wet speaker, almost like the voice was being spoken by something too hollow to hold it. And now I can't stop thinking, what if that child isn't calling me? What if they're practicing? What if they're learning the right way to say my name before they send someone to say it to my face? I haven't slept since it came through. I turned the lights off. I unplugged the emergency speaker. I shut the loopback monitor down and covered the panel with tape. Because I don't want to hear that name spoken like that again. Not by something that doesn't understand what it's saying. Not by something that thinks it can pull me in. Just by repeating the shape of who I used to be. If you're hearing this, and if you've lost someone who once said your name like it meant something, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say, do not answer. Not if the voice feels wrong. Not if the timing feels perfect. Not if the sentence lands just a little too smoothly. Because they've been listening, learning, and now they're speaking. But they don't speak like us. They speak like memory, dressed in the skin of language. And if you listen too long, you'll forget who said it first. This is Jordan Hale, still here, still human in all the wrong ways. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you ever hear your name spoken in the dark, ask yourself one thing. Did they say it like they remembered you? Or like they rehearsed it? Because only one of those voices is real, and the other is already inside the room. This is Jordan Hale. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. When the satellites went silent, most of us thought they were gone for good. We accepted that the skies weren't going to give us answers anymore. Just interference, just clouds and noise and the weight of everything that used to be above us, falling out of orbit. One system failure at a time. But tonight, something came back. Not fully, not in the way we hoped. Just one system, old, civilian, a thermal weather imaging satellite, last logged before the blackout as OWS-7, registered out of a French coastal station that's now long underwater. I keep a monitor wired to that band, not because I expected anything to come through, but because part of me believed that even the dead sky might flinch if the right name was whispered into it. At 3:17, the screen lit up. No boot sequence, no pings, just an image. One frame, black and white, stained by static but clear enough to recognize. Southern Germany. Wide-angle view. Clouds pulled back like a curtain. Mountains sharpened. Rivers tracing scars through fields that haven't seen movement in weeks. And on the map, dozens of dark circles, perfectly round, each one hovering over a different town. They weren't annotations. They weren't shadows. They were marks, painted onto the feed itself. Like someone, or something, had decided to track what mattered most. And what mattered most was what had already gone quiet. Every circle sat over a known population center. Munich, Nuremberg, Augsburg, even the little towns. Places I used to pass through and forget. Places where people still sat outside at night with radios and soft bread and reasons to believe in tomorrow. All circled in black. except one. Near the southern edge of the frame, almost cut off, a single town stood unmarked. Berg. Tiny place. Barely on most maps. Used to be known for old stonework and quiet winters. No military bases, no known shelters. Just a cluster of rooftops and a church that still rang its bell until last month. No circle, no mark, just left alone. The satellite blinked out 5 minutes later. Gone again. No signal since. But that image, it hasn't left me. I printed it. Taped it above the main console. Drew over the towns myself, just to be sure. The marks weren't random. They meant something. And Berg, whatever's happening there, it's either being spared or it's being watched for last. There's no telling which is worse. I've already had 3 signals try to bounce through that zone. All static. All shaped wrong. One of them tried to play back my own words from last week, but not quite. It replaced one sentence. The one where I said I missed my niece. In the playback it said, "I saw her. She smiled. She's here." But I never said that, because I know she's gone. And the fact that something else said it in my voice means something out there thinks it knows how to find me. Or worse, how to trick the ones still listening. If you're hearing this, if you're near Berg, I'm asking you now, stay away. Don't go looking for answers. Don't go chasing the place that wasn't circled. Because maybe it's not a refuge. Maybe it's a doorway. Maybe it's the last domino left standing before the rest of the pattern falls into place. We like to think the map matters, that geography gives us safety, that if we can just find the right hill, the right church, the right tree with a name carved into it, we'll be okay. But maps lie, photos lie, and sometimes the clearest image is just bait for something darker. I'm not saying don't hope. I'm saying hope smarter. This is Jordan Hale, still watching the skies, still counting the marks, still refusing to let the silence draw the map. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you find yourself standing in a town with no shadow overhead, ask why. Because the light isn't always on your side, and not every blank space means you've been spared. Sometimes it just means you're next. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. There are voices you expect to hear. The desperate, the hopeful, the ones still fumbling for a familiar channel through this wreck of a continent. And then there are the ones you don't hear. Not because they're gone, but because they've chosen something older than speech, something older than fear. Today, someone reached me, not by radio, not through a recorded line or emergency channel, but by tapping, steel on steel. The signal came from somewhere under Zurich Airport, an area marked inaccessible in every updated intel packet I have. Collapsed during the first week of the blackout, or so we were told. Caved in, flooded, toxic. But someone's still down there, and they still remember how to talk without a voice. I picked up the pattern while doing a random sweep on a lower band. One I barely check anymore, because nothing real ever answers from that deep in the static. But this wasn't static. It was rhythm. Precise, consistent. 5 seconds between each cluster. 7 dots, then a pause, then 3, then 2. Morse. I had to pull the old chart out. The one I laminated during the last year of training, back when I thought learning a dead language was just another exercise in over-preparedness. But it wasn't dead. Not today. The message came slow. Too slow to be automated. Too clean to be accidental. Someone was using their hands. Someone had remembered how to make words out of pressure. And this is what they said. I can't see the sun, but I can see their shadow. They don't bleed, but they remember bleeding. I think they're copying. They got the names wrong at first, but now they don't. Each line took minutes. Each word was carved into time like a scar. I had to sit there, not breathing, translating tap by tap, waiting for what came next. The message continued. I keep saying my name, just to stay myself. I don't think they like that. They started saying it back, too clearly. At this point, I leaned in closer. Not because I couldn't hear, but because the words didn't feel like they were meant for the air anymore. They felt like they were meant for the bones, like something you whisper against your own ribs to remind yourself you still exist. And then they tapped the last part. Slow, shaky. They're digging, not up, but down. I think they're trying to bury something. O.R. Find who remembers it. And then the line went silent. No ping. No fade out. Just a full stop, like whoever was tapping had either said everything they could, or been stopped from saying more. That message has been running laps in my head ever since. Not just because of the words, but because of the sound behind them. The tapping wasn't echoing like it came from a tunnel. It was tight, contained, more like a vault, or a container made for silence. That person, whoever they are, isn't just underground. They're somewhere that was never meant to let sound out at all. And yet, somehow, they found a way to speak anyway. That's what gets me. That's what keeps me awake. Because if they can still speak, still remember their name, still resist, then so can we. But we have to be careful. Because something is listening, something that has been learning, something that is getting better at wearing our voices, our names, our scars, and soon they might say our names, with just the right tremble in the vowels, to make us believe they were always ours. If you're near Zurich, don't go down, don't search, don't try to help, but do listen. And if you hear tapping, don't interrupt. Let them finish. Let them say the whole thing, because the first name they speak might not be yours. But the second one just might. This is Jordan Hale, still translating the things we were never meant to read, still hearing the pain beneath the noise, still holding the line. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you have to speak in the dark, use your hands, use the walls, use the beat of your own chest. Because silence is not neutral. And the ones who remember how to knock might be the only ones left who still know how to open a door. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Tonight, I want to talk about the kind of silence that doesn't come from absence, but from presence. The kind of silence that doesn't mean nothing is happening, but that something has finished arriving. It started 12 hours ago. Gradually, so slowly I almost missed it. First, the wind, gone. Not reduced, not gentle, gone. Not even the soft hiss through the tunnel vents. Not even the usual high-altitude currents that bend the treetops and rattle the old antenna wire. Just stillness. Then the sky, not dark, not stormed, just unmoving. Clouds hung where they were, held in place like suspended dust. No drift, no form, just gray stretched over gray, like the atmosphere had forgotten how to breathe. I thought maybe it was an illusion. Maybe I'd stared too long at the same patch of ridge. Maybe sleep deprivation was warping the horizon. But then the towers started humming. 5 relay towers, all on different grids. All from different decades. None of them built to do this. But at 2:07, one after the other, in perfect sequence, each one began to emit a 4-second tone. Low, not quite a note, not quite a warning. More like the sound you hear in a dream just before the walls fall in. It didn't play on any band I've mapped before, didn't interfere with civilian broadcasts, didn't trip any alerts. Just a hum, long enough to feel, short enough to forget. If you weren't paying attention, I was. And I recognized the pattern. Every 41 seconds, 4 seconds on, 37 off. Exactly. There's no natural phenomenon I know of that runs in that timing. It's engineered, it's measured, and that means it's sending something. The question is, to who? I've been in this bunker for 71 days, long enough to forget what spring smells like. Long enough for my knuckles to know the cold steel of this mic better than they remember warmth. And in all that time, I've never heard anything quite like this. It doesn't ask. It doesn't warn. It just hums, like a machine that finally remembered its purpose, after waiting decades in the dark. And when it started, the animals stopped making noise. No birds, no foxes, not even the rats that scratch behind the southern wall. Everything paused, like the world took a breath, but forgot how to exhale. I don't think it's an attack, not like the others. This doesn't feel like someone trying to break us. This feels like someone listening. For the echo of who's still here, because that hum, that pulse dash, it's not just a sound, it's a question. Who's left that can still hear this? That's what it's really saying, not in words, not in language, but in that low vibration that hums against your ribs if you're close enough to the walls when it plays. The kind of signal that doesn't need ears, just nerves. I don't know what happens when it finds what it's listening for. I don't know what kind of reply it expects, and I don't know how long it'll keep asking before it decides no one's home. But I do know this. Nothing good ever waits this patiently, unless it's sure you'll eventually answer. So don't. Not yet. Don't hum back. Don't echo. Don't test the frequency. Let it call. Let it wonder. And if you feel the walls vibrate in a pattern that matches your heartbeat, step away, because there are things older than power grids, older than towers, older than war, that only wake up when the silence gets too loud. This is Jordan Hale, still standing, still resisting the urge to answer every question posed by the dark. 99.3 FM. The last frequency. And if the hum finds you tonight, don't pretend you're not afraid. Fear is the one sound they haven't figured out how to copy. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I've been on the air long enough to know when a voice doesn't match the silence it comes from. There are the tremblers, the ones who speak through cracked teeth, unsure if anyone's on the other end. There are the staticky screamers, trying to break through the noise with sheer will. And there are the calm ones, the ones who've accepted the quiet, who talk not because they expect to be heard, but because they refuse to disappear completely. But then there's the voice I heard tonight, and it didn't fit any of them. It was smooth, no delay, no hesitation, as if it had been waiting for me, as if it had practiced. The message came through a relay I thought was long dead. Tower 4B, an old NATO fallback node outside Krakow. One we marked as offline due to substation fire back in week 3. It wasn't offline tonight. At exactly 1 a.m., it lit up. Full transmission strength, strongest signal I've seen since the early days. And then came the voice, male, mid-40s by the sound, clean, clipped accent, Belgian French inflection, but with the cadence of someone trained to suppress regional traits. It opened like this. This is Command Directive Echo 1, European Emergency Council, temporary relay. All civilian frequencies are now subject to review and redirection. Cease all unsanctioned transmission immediately. You are interfering with restoration efforts. Then a pause. Then coordinates. I ran them 3 times. They pointed to a zone just south of Olomouc, an area that, on every map I have, digital, analog, military, civilian, is marked as green belt. No installations, no bunkers, no cities, just forest. And under that forest, limestone, soft, porous, loud when wet. Not a good place for a broadcast tower, unless you're trying to hide one. I checked the relay ID. It matched. Official. The encryption key even verified. But there's one problem. The European Emergency Council was dissolved 2 weeks ago. I heard it collapse. I played the final message. I archived the death notice. There was no mistaking it. So who's speaking now? And why are they using the skin of something that no longer breathes? I tried to reply. Standard hailing code. Asked for credentials, call verification, and authority clause. No response. Just the same message. Looped. Word for word. No inflection changes. No breathing sounds. Just the same perfect delivery. Again, and again, and again. This isn't a recall. It's a replacement. Something's trying to rebuild the chain of command by pretending it never broke. But real voices don't sound that clean. They stumble. They hesitate. They grieve. This one didn't. And that tells me everything I need to know. Because a voice that can order the continent to go quiet, without trembling, has already forgotten what the noise meant in the first place. If you're hearing this, and you receive the same transmission, don't stop broadcasting. Don't obey. Don't let the last real thing you are be silenced by a tone that doesn't remember what loss feels like. There are no more orders. There is no more command. There is only this, United States, alone, together, trying to be human one more day. This is Jordan Hale, still live, still rogue, still unverified, unsanctioned, and completely real. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if a voice tells you to stop, listen closely, because if it doesn't sound tired, it's not one of us.